Hello. All right, today I'm going to talk about student norms. And the way I'm going to present it is in a way that I might teach it during an in-service, or if I'm teaching a group of teachers, or just kind of talking about how student norms are important to the classroom. Not one teacher will have the same norms for their classroom, so this is more of a guideline on how to choose the right norms and what to remember when you are creating those norms for your students. So there's 10 expectations, just something to think about here. What adults believe about a young person's capacity often determines what will be achieved. So if we feel that kids can do it and we give them that, if we give them that confidence and we do everything for them, they'll start to believe that they can do it. But if we have smaller expectations, they're going to achieve smaller things. Big expectations, they're going to achieve more. All right, so the first one is relationships. Over on the left here, these are kind of questions from the video that I had you watch that kind of talks about from the student perspective. Maybe some questions that they're kind of thinking. And then over on the right is just why things that you can remember to do in your classroom when you're trying to choose the correct norms or expectations for your particular group of students. Okay, so the most important thing about relationships is that you're forming them. Okay, and that students are forming them. So it has to be a norm and an expectation for them to build relationships with the people around them. We have to make it fun for them to create, and we have to encourage them to build those relationships, because having even just one positive staff member in the building or a positive relationship for a student is going to can make all the difference sometimes. And relevance. It's just like us. We have to know the why. Well, so do students. So the most important thing is when you're coming up with norms, make sure that you are helping your students realize the why behind the things they are doing. Because if it doesn't mean that much to them and they don't know the why, they might not be as willing to work their best at it if they don't know the answer to that why. Okay, so like it says, is the work just a series of hoops to jump? Well, is it? It has to mean more to them. It's not just, oh, I'm doing this because my teacher says I have to do it. Okay, the only way they take ownership of their learning is if they know the why. So find a way to connect the learning with the situation and help students succeed, and find out why it's relevant to their success. Okay, time. Students need to feel like they're using their time on things that matter to them. Okay, teachers teach them why activity or assignment matters, and they will have a better chance of getting it completed. Kind of goes back to the relevance, time, all of these things kind of tie together. Allow students to learn at a pace that is good for them and make each time frame as meaningful as it can be. That's really important to think about when you think of what norms you can create for your students. Timing, kind of all of that goes together. Okay, timing really is everything. We have to think about the timing of a lesson, the sequence of it. When do we choose to put it into our plans? Why would we do that? Think about all of the things behind it before we just jump in and do something. So, and also when it's not working, we have to be flexible to adjust our timing and make accommodations as needed. It's important to think about the student perspective here, where it says, do all students have to learn things in the same sequence? No, that's something to think about for your classroom, how it works for you and your group of students. Play. depending on what grade you're teaching. In elementary school, it's easier to allow students to play than it is when kids are older. But some of the best learning opportunities are going to come from when kids are taking risks and um, guesses and experimenting with things and making predictions. All of those things are going to bring bring out the best in your students and probably teach them some pretty memorable lessons that they might learn from those experiences rather than you just teaching it to them. Okay, so they need to have opportunities to tinker, make mistakes, guesses, all of those things. So when you're thinking about your norms, make sure that you are making sure you're giving your students those opportunities. Practice. Do we learn something and then immediately move on to the next skill? That's a really important thing to think about. Okay, can we engage in deep and sustained practice of the skills that we need to learn? Well, that's also something that's really important to think about. How do my students practice these? What is my expectation for how they practice these things? Okay, are you giving them opportunities for practice? And the main thing there is, are you giving them positive feedback or helpful feedback when appropriate when they are doing this practice? Because not only is it important to think about what the norm is and the expectation for them, but you also have to have expectations for yourself, and especially how you're going to give feedback to students and make their learning important to them. All right, choice. I feel like this is a very big one to think about when you are talking about creating norms for your students. Okay, they have to be able to make their own choices. And especially if you start thinking about older kids making choices about what they want to do, how they want to do it, type of person they want to be, the type of student they want to be. And then it's also a great way when they're younger to really start teaching the students what the expectation is and then allow them to make the choices to follow that expectation the way that it needs to be. Each student is unique and the path they take can be too, as long as they have the right guidance. Authenticity. Okay, it says right here, is my work just a series of worksheets? Well, is it? Is it just a series of worksheets, or is there a lot more to add to your learning, to their learning? Okay, is it something that they can really take ownership in, and is it something that really becomes important to them? Don't get me wrong, sometimes there's going to be worksheets. I mean, that's the way it is. That's how we practice, or that's how they learn to apply their skills. But we have to take it beyond that and help them find out whether the work they're doing in the classroom can be significant, not only in the classroom, but also outside the classroom. Okay, make the work meaningful and empowering for students and make it as real and relatable as possible. Challenge. Is schoolwork just about completing assignments, or do we challenge the kids? And this is the one where I am addressing high and meaningful standards. So when you are creating norms for your classroom, this is a huge one. Okay, it goes back to that quote from the beginning of the PowerPoint. If we expect low expectations from our students, we're going to get low outcome. If we have high expectations, we're going to have high achievement. They correlate, they go together. Okay, so the expectation is for every student to be held to the same high expectations. We also have to be careful not to lower expectations for certain students. Instead, we can give them different opportunities to show what they know, but we still have to hold them to that same expectation. And application. So finding unique ways to take everything you teach them and And how do you want them to apply it in the classroom? How do you want them to apply it to real life situations? Okay, I would show this presentation to some teachers and just give them some ideas and thoughts on how they can create norms in their classroom. And these 10 things they can kind of think about and make sure that in some way the norms that they are creating for their students in their classroom somehow kind of incorporate these 10 expectations, because these are 10 very important expectations for student achievement. These are the references I used. And in conclusion, I think this addressed the standard because it's important for students and adults to know where they stand. Students are much more successful when they are given guidelines and then coached on how to follow and succeed at the skills being asked of them. And I know that kids fight it a lot, but they need structure, and norms can offer them expectations and structure, which will help their future success. It's relevant. This is relevant because as an administrator, I'm going to have to lead PD sessions on various topics. It's relevant to my future self as an administrator to talk to my teachers about things like student norms. And it's important for students to take ownership of their learning. And it's important for us to take ownership of our future job as administrators. The assignment has given me opportunities to create material I could use in my future as a principal, and application is one of the best ways to learn something. So we can read about it all day, but until we do a project like this and apply our knowledge, it might not seem as relevant. And that's something really important to think about kids too, is they can learn all day, but until they get a chance to really be held to a high standard